We don't use the front door. Submitted to r/nosleep by Late Night Linger. I feel like I should state that Carter and I are not antisocial. We honestly just found the back entrance more convenient. We weren't avoiding our neighbors, we just never used our shared entrance, so we never met them. It sounds bad to say that a year living in our apartment with the same people as our neighbors, and we don't know any of them. Our apartment is in a 100-something-year-old house, all divided up into a bunch of different apartments. I think there are 5 apartments total, just in one house. We live in one of the lower apartments, with a little backyard and a back gate that leads right out to our parking spot. The front door leads into a small foyer that we share with the other upstairs neighbors. I learned today that one of those neighbors is named Mark, and I honestly wish I had met him a lot sooner. Nice guy. Our apartment is small, but holds a lot more than you would expect. There are tons of storage to make up for the lack of floor space. 5 closets, a basement, and a crawl space near our front door. It's a little random, and apparently, the neighbor before us installed it. It's basically just a square hole about 3 feet by 3 feet in the wall, leading into the vacant space under the upstairs neighbor's stairs beside our closet. The entrance is too small to store many big things in it, so we mostly just shove some bags of winter clothes in there and use the closets instead. Carter and I work together at a farm just outside of our town, and we leave pretty early in the morning, around 5:30 a.m. That's part of why we haven't done much socializing since moving here, and why we haven't gotten to know our neighbors. We're both tired a lot of the time and seem to perpetually have an early morning the next day. We're just hustling and struggling to pay our bills. I guess I'm just trying to justify how I could possibly go a year living in an apartment without meeting the neighbors. I'm still trying to justify it to myself. Today, we use the front door. The back gate has always been finicky, but yesterday when we came home, it had swung open in the wind. To be safe, we decided we should use the front door. Make sure we didn't leave our backyard open to potential visitors. That's how we met Mark. As we were locking up the front door, the door beside it, his front door, swung open. A young man with scruffy brown hair popped his head out into the foyer and cocked an eyebrow. We smiled crookedly at us and glanced around the space, as if searching for someone else. "Hi," I said, my face feeling a touch of heat as I realized this was our longtime estranged neighbor that we always declared we really should introduce ourselves to. Mark and I exchanged awkward smiles and looked apologetically back at our neighbor. "I'm Teresa, this is Carter. It's nice to finally meet you." He nodded his head, eyebrow still cocked but smile a little straighter and more genuine. "Hi. I'm Mark." He paused for a moment, glancing quickly over to our door. "Friends of Anthony's?" Carter and I glanced at each other, confused. I offered a small smile but shook my head. The heat in my cheeks was beginning to shift down into my throat. "No," my voice cracked. A wave of concern and confusion swept over Mark's face as his eyes darted from me to Carter to our door. "He lives here," Mark said in a hollow voice, as if he also needed convincing. I could hear a rushing in my ears now as I tried to dissect the situation and find the misunderstanding that would explain this interaction. Carter stepped in before I could regain my composure. "We don't have any roommates." "Who is Anthony?" Mark was about 3 shades paler already. "He lives here." His voice was shallow. He cleared his throat before continuing. "He has a key. I run into him sometimes in the foyer when he locks the door. Or here." My stomach dropped. "We don't use the front door, we leave it locked," Carter said quietly. We all stared at the door for a moment as we processed the situation. We called the police and waited in Mark's apartment while they searched our place. You can probably guess where Anthony was living, in the crawl space. Apparently, he had set up a small bed, maybe better called a nest, with our clothes and assorted blankets, all of them thick with the smell of use. There were bottles of human urine lined up against a wall on the far side of the room, indicating, according to the police, that he had been residing there for some time. Our work schedule was tacked onto the wall next to the nest, apparently swiped off of our table one day and mistaken for lost. There were also food wrappings, cans, alcohol, and face wipes, all manner of trash spread throughout the tiny space, and a small store of food in the corner where the roof sloped down to meet the floor. All of this horrified me, but not nearly as much as the realization we came to in Mark's kitchen, entirely separate from the investigation. You see, Mark has lived here for 3 years, in the same apartment. Anthony, according to Mark, has been living there for at least 2 years, maybe even longer. As long as we have lived in this apartment, Anthony has lived there too, somehow. moving about our house during the day while we worked and hiding away or fleeing before we could get home to find him. I'm writing this from the motel room as I try to settle my nerves, Carter asleep on the bed beside me. The police are looking for Anthony, but who knows if they will ever find him. He probably saw the police and fled far away by now. Maybe. Must be. Has to be, because I don't know how I'll ever be able to go back if he hasn't. Who knows how he got the key, who knows how he knew when we would be moving in well enough to avoid detection. Who knows how often he watched us sleep? How will I ever go back to that house?